observed a lesson on the Great Wall of China and the dynasties of China. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the format of the lesson as well as how the teacher taught the lesson and how the students were responsive to the lesson. First, classroom management. I observed my own teacher, and therefore I knew how her system of classroom management worked, and it was evident through the lesson. She established the tone of the classroom from day one. The students know that she's a no-nonsense person, yet still they're comfortable with her and enough to volunteer, participate, that kind of thing. But they know when she's serious, and they listen to her. But in this classroom management style, she keeps the atmosphere comfortable. So students are willing to volunteer, willing to participate, willing to show that they care about the lesson. For student involvement, she constantly asked directed questions. So in the middle of her lecture, in the middle of an activity, she would ask questions that pointed students into a certain goal, and if they got off track, she would ask easier questions that would lead them to the desired goal. She also always used examples with the students. For example, the one lesson that I focused on when I was doing this evaluation of her was building the Great Wall, and she would choose students to pretend like they were building the wall. So for example, she pretended she was the emperor and say, I'm going to build this big wall, and it's going to protect from the nomads and attacking us from the north, and, you know, Johnny, you're a soldier, I want you to go work, and you're a peasant, and you're going to go work. And she would pretend that these students and almost bring the history alive to them. And I've seen her do this before, but in particular she did do it during this lecture. As far as teaching methods, her biggest emphasis on teaching methods is storytelling and entertaining. As much as she's teaching the content, she does it in a storytelling way and in an entertaining way to keep the students interested. So often students are turned away by teachers that just, feed them facts and just are bland with their... She really livens up the story and brings in her personal life too. For example, one part that we talked about was respect for elders during the lesson on China. And she told a story about how at Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving dinner, her grandmother would always sit and say, oh, go feed that child. The children are always first. That child looks hungry. Make sure she's got something to eat. And like always the kids went first. And she would contrast this with the idea that elders were first and the younger would serve the older, the elders of the family in Chinese culture. And so she really brings in personal experience of herself as well as the children to explain different things. It really makes the students connect to what they're learning. Another one of her teaching methods is making sure that the textbook is also part of their learning. With 9th grade world history, they need to get into the habit of using the textbook as a learning resource. And you can see how much scaffolding she does with her classes based on the level they are. The regular world history classes, she has a lot of read alouds. The students read, she reads, they do it together in class. With the honors classes, she sometimes has them do the reading at home as opposed to in class, and she's able to, just by student participation and understanding of the content, know if they're actually doing the assignments or not. And most of the children do the assignments in the honors classes, but I think she knows that with the regular classes, students get more out of it when there's that scaffolding and the read aloud sort of thing. And one other teaching method she uses is reinforcing content in a variety of creative ways. She always has the students doing different things to cultivate what they've learned. So, for example, if it's anything from drawing to doing a creative writing sort of thing, sometimes she lets them choose what they want to do, and it really just reinforces what they have learned. The objective that she was teaching in this lesson that I observed was the government, economy, and contributions to later civilizations, with an emphasis on the Great Wall of China. Now, this was for Chinese Empire. And to reach the objectives, she constantly was reinforcing these categories of characteristics. So in the PowerPoint that went up during her lecture, the subtitle would be government, the title of the slide would be government. She'd tell what she needs to tell about the government structure. And then later on in the reading, then she would highlight, after they've read a section, now this is what the government blah, 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 and is constantly reinforcing those categories for checking for understanding, asking questions. Those words were always in her questions: the government, the economy. What aspects of the economy led to this? And she really got those objectives across by making sure that those students knew that these are the categories we need to know about this civilization. The lesson was organized. First, the students did the reading with the textbook. The regular level did the read aloud, and she would periodically stop, ask questions, clarify. The honors class were charged to spend 20 minutes reading by themselves. And then they had a written worksheet that they filled out after they did the reading. She does this in order to ensure that the students are listening during the reading and doing the reading. She doesn't hand out, for the honors kit, she doesn't hand it out right away, because then they're just hunting and pecking in the textbook. But if she waits, then she's able to do it. The students do it after they've actually understood the content of the textbook. And then finally she follows the lecture, or she follows with the lecture with notes. Right now, since we're still early in the semester, she still gives slot notes to both her regular class and the honors classes. She started to wean the students in the honors classes off of the slot notes. However, I think the regular level kids are going to stay on the slot notes for a while, just to make sure that they know what the details are, what details are important, and what are just informative details that the students, it's nice to know, but it's not really what they need to know. They need to focus on what those core characteristics and details are. Sometimes the lecture doesn't come until the next period, the class period, so her, the one set of objectives may be met in 2 days instead of just one, because a lot of times there's not time for everything. But within a lesson, even if it crosses both days, it goes in that order. Students' reaction is mostly their involvement in the lecture. With her storytelling, the kids, sometimes laugh, they sometimes ask questions, they ask her to clarify things. They're very involved in the lecture. They are also participating. When she asks directed questions, students answer. She has the students participate in the read aloud when they do read alouds of the textbook, and also the students participate in the creative activities that she has them do. And I think they're genuinely interested in the content, which is very important. And, if the students are zoning out, you can usually tell. And these students are actually really interested and participating in her lesson. The notes that they take, like I said, are slot notes. So I took a look at a couple. Depending on the class, depended on how detailed they were. The regular classes really only had the blanks filled out. That was, the bare minimum of what they would need. For the honors classes, as I walked around, I saw some students, they had little notes written on the side. One girl who I know is in art class, she had little pictures on the side, and I asked her after class, I saw you doodling back there, what were you doing? And she said that she draws sometimes to help her remember. And she showed me her notes, and she actually has little pictures next to the four four dynasties to help her keep the order memorized. So definitely in the honors classes, they're definitely taking more detailed notes. In the regular class, she'll sometimes say, okay, now you need to know this, put a star next to it. Or, hey, write this down, there's one extra thing I really think you guys need to know. And she'll direct them on their notes. And most of the students are paying attention and do write it down as they are told to. It was definitely successful for both the students and the teachers. It was successful for the students because, they were interested. They generally seemed like they were learning. They were answering the questions they were needed. They, most of them received hundreds on the worksheets that they were doing. They were actively participating in the reading, knew the place, if their name was called, that kind of thing. But I think it was also successful for the teacher because she got the feedback that she needed to know that the students were paying attention. She reached the objectives that the students genuinely did learn. They haven't been tested on this material yet, but hopefully soon the test will show that the teacher was successful in teaching the lesson. And I just think teacher-student participation, the back and forth that goes on during her lecture and during the questioning, and just the open atmosphere really shows that the lesson was successful. I think the most resemblance is obviously the student interaction. The most resemblance to what we've learned in class. The student involvement is key to student learning. If they're just sitting there being sponges, they're not going to absorb as much as if they're actively participating and being required to constantly show understanding and show that they are listening and understanding and learning what they're supposed to be learning, the objectives. And I think for the future, I think the biggest thing I'm going to take away from her lessons is the student involvement, but also the storytelling aspect of her lecture. In the high school level, you can't get away from lecture most of the time. And I think that the way that she makes her lessons lively and entertaining through her storytelling and connecting to her own experiences and the students' experiences and pretending like the students are part of this story and history is what really makes it. And I really think that that's one thing that I'll take away from her lessons and how she delivers her lessons to the classroom. I'll take that into my own teaching. Thanks.